This video will show the FUDSChem team directory, how to check your permissions, and review which permissions are needed to accomplish certain tasks in FUDSChem. The team directory is located under Quick Links Team Directory. Let's go there now. Everyone who has access to the district database will be listed here. For this example, everyone listed has access to the training database. In order to get a FUDSChem login, users have to provide their name, job title, contact information, and office address, which is then listed on this page. If your contact information changes, or if you retire or change jobs, please send an email to fuds.support@synetics.net to request that your information be updated in the team directory. The permissions of any user can be viewed by clicking on the permissions hyperlink to the right of their name. There are several types of users listed in the FUDSChem user guide. We'll go over each one, and which permissions they need. All users will need project-specific permissions. For this example, the J09CA0123 user's permission grants access to any projects associated with the J09CA0123 property. If you're unsure which property the number is associated with, there's an easy way to check. Mouse over the library option to open the menu. Here, property numbers are listed, followed by their names. We can see that the J09CA0123 number matches with Camp Richards. A general user requires general users' permissions. General users are not required to load, review, or approve any data types. These users have read-only access to all approved data, are able to run reports and export approved data for viewing in Google Earth. General users constitute the vast majority of all users on the system. Casual database users, such as project managers, risk assessors, geologists, hydrogeologists, project stakeholders, and regulators typically require general user security membership only. For information on reports accessible within FUDSChem, please refer to our FUDSChem Report Overviews playlist, which is linked in the description. For information on viewing data in Google Earth, please refer to our Google Earth Tutorials playlist, linked in the description. A library user requires general users and library submission users' permissions. Library users are able to upload electronic documents to the project library, assign any required metadata, and certify the document as being ready for review and approval. Documents are not available for general users until they have been approved. For information on how to upload files to the FUDSChem library, please refer to our library submission tutorial, which is linked in the description. A laboratory user requires general users, library submission users, and ChemLab submission users' permissions. Laboratory users are responsible for screening and delivering the electronic data deliverable, EDD, and adding the electronic version of the laboratory report, PDF, to the library for samples analyzed by the laboratory. For information on how to submit lab data to FUDSChem, please refer to our Laboratory SED submission tutorial, which is linked in the description. A laboratory manager requires general users and laboratory managers' permissions. Laboratory managers are responsible for reviewing project EQAPs and acknowledging that the lab agrees to analyze all samples and report the associated data in accordance with the EQAP. For information on how to use the EQAP Lab Acknowledgement tool, please refer to our eQuap Lab Acknowledgement tutorial, which is linked in the description. A submission user requires general users, library submission users, setup users, and submission users' permissions for various non-laboratory data types. For example, LDI submission users. Submission users are responsible for screening and delivering a variety of different non-laboratory data types. Non-laboratory data types may include location, groundwater elevation, well stabilization parameters, well construction intervals, etc. In addition to submission of the electronic data, these users are also responsible for delivering supporting electronic documents, PDF, into the project library. For information on how to submit data to FUDSChem, please refer to our Data Entry Tutorial Videos playlist, which is linked in the description. A setup user requires general users and setup users' permissions. Setup users can create, edit, and certify an eQuap, as well as access event management tools. For information on how to create an eQuap, please refer to our eQuap tutorials playlist, which is linked in the description. For information on event management, please refer to our event management tutorial video, linked in the description. A setup reviewer requires general users, setup users, and setup review users' permissions. Setup reviewers can approve and uncertify an eQuap. A setup manager requires general users, setup managers, and setup users' permissions. Setup managers can unapprove an eQuap. A data validator requires general users, library submission users, and ChemVal review users' permissions. Data validators perform manual and automated review of laboratory data. These users are responsible for reviewing ADR reports, manually adding and removing validation qualifiers, and uploading final validation reports to the project library. For information on how to validate data using the tools in FUDSChem, please refer to our Validation and Data Usability Assessment DUA tutorials playlist, which is linked in the description. A USACE project chemist requires general users, library submission users, library review users, chem review users, chem lab review users, ChemVal review users, setup users, and setup review users' permissions. USACE project chemists are responsible for reviewing and approving qualifiers that were applied during the data validation process, and for the overall review and approval of the laboratory data itself. Further, the USACE project chemist is generally responsible for the review and approval of electronic laboratory reports and data validation reports, after which they are available for viewing by general users. Project chemists also review and approve eQuaps. In the case of self-performed projects, project chemists are responsible for setting up the eQuap as well. For information on how to review and approve data in FUDSChem, please refer to our Government Personnel Tutorials playlist, which is linked in the description. A Project Delivery Team Member, or PDT member, requires general users and Project Delivery Team members' permissions. The Data Usability Assessment takes place at the end of an event and may be performed by government users, contractor users, or both. The Data Usability Assessment PDT will have access to the Data Usability Assessment interface, including the checklist, reports, and sample qualification interface where temporary flags can be changed to final qualifiers. Note that regardless of the process followed, only a government user with eChem user permissions can approve the Data Usability Assessment. For information on how to perform a Data Usability Assessment in FUDSChem, please refer to our Validation and Data Usability Assessment DUA Tutorials playlist, which is linked in the description. An eChem user requires general users, chem review users, project delivery team members, and eChem users' permissions. The eChem user is able to approve a data usability assessment. Typically, only USACE chemists are given the eChem user role. An eChem manager requires general users, chem review users, project delivery team members, eChem users, and eChem managers' permissions. The eChem manager can unapprove the data usability assessment. Each USACE district will typically only have one designated user with these permissions. A data manager requires general users, library submission users, library review users, and managers' permissions. Data managers are responsible for the successful operation of the database, and are granted security memberships that allow them to create and manage events and monitor activities taking place on the system in real time. A user administrator requires general users and administrators' permissions. User administrators are able to create accounts, reset passwords, and assign security memberships to individual users. Because of security considerations, these permissions are assigned to a very limited number of users. A system administrator's security memberships are as required. System administrators have need for any or all of the security memberships listed in order to provide end-user support or perform system troubleshooting. If you have questions about what permissions you need in order to accomplish a specific task, please reach out to your Synectics point of contact. Note that the team directory allows you to sort by a variety of options by clicking on the Sort By dropdown. By default, the directory sorts by first name. The team directory also allows you to filter on a specific permission. We can filter by J09CA0123 users to see only users that have access to the Camp Richards projects. The default filter is set to general users, since that option will cover all users and not leave anyone out. If someone from your team needed access and was not listed in the team directory when the filter was set to the default general users, that would mean that they do not have access to the district at all. In this case, they may need a login created. If someone from your team needed access and was listed in the team directory but missing from the list when you filter on your specific project, you would need to send Synectics a request to grant that person access to the project. Don't forget to subscribe to the FUDSChem YouTube channel for more tutorial videos. All of the tutorials and playlists mentioned during this video are linked in the description below. Lastly, if you have questions or comments, feel free to contact us at fuds.support@synectics.net. Thank you.